The opening shot is a dramatic split screen. On the left, the impersonal, high-tech gloss of the BBC World News Studio in London, all cool blues and polished glass. On the right, the slightly warmer, yet impeccably professional, remote feed from Manila, where Dr. Elias Reyes sits. He is the guest, a globally recognized Filipino economist wearing a crisp brown Tagalog, ready to discuss the hyper-complex, multi-trillion-dollar shifts in the global supply chain. Specifically how Southeast Asia has navigated the recent geopolitical disruptions. The anchor is Marcus Finch, a figure known throughout the BBC for his crisp delivery, sharp suits, and an unfortunate tendency towards subtle condescension when interviewing experts from the global South. The discussion begins with the formalities: trade deficits, logistics, and forecasts. Dr. Reyes speaks with a deliberate, smooth, and tonally neutral English, delivering complex economic theories with remarkable clarity and precision, the very qualities that make Filipino English the gold standard for global business communication. But Finch, accustomed to simplifying global events for a Western audience, grows impatient with the nuance. He sees Dr. Reyes's composure not as professional mastery, but as an opportunity for patronizing translation. He waits for a breath, interrupts Dr. Reyes mid-sentence, and leans into the camera, adopting a conspiratorial, knowing air. Dr. Reyes, if I could just stop you there, for the sake of our millions of viewers who might be lost in the technical jargon. You're talking about complex maneuvering, anticipating bottlenecks, and thriving despite limited infrastructure. Let's call a spade, shall we? You're essentially saying that this amazing Filipino and Asian economic resilience is just discard, isn't it? Just some clever little street smarts and hustling. Finch delivers the Tagalog word discard with a clumsy, exaggerated pronunciation and caps it with a brief, dismissive smirk, clearly expecting Dr. Reyes to chuckle in agreement, a shared, patronizing moment designed to diminish Dr. Reyes's work. The intent is clear: to reduce sophisticated economic planning to amateur, improvised cleverness. The insult, delivered with such casual arrogance on the world stage, hangs heavy in the air. Dr. Reyes pauses, his face a mask of disappointment, but his professional focus remains absolute. The subtle mocking of a profound cultural concept was Finch's critical error. Dr. Reyes does not move, his eyes lock directly onto the camera and thus, onto Finch and millions of viewers. His tone, when he finally speaks, is not angry, but devastatingly calm, precise, and measured. Mr. Finch, Dr. Reyes begins, his voice dropping slightly, forcing the anchor to lean in and listen. I appreciate the effort to contextualize my comments, but I must respectfully challenge and correct your interpretation of the term discard. You treat it as a synonym for a trick or simple street smarts. This shows a fundamental misunderstanding of its depth and its value. He continues his verbal deconstruction, using his linguistic precision as a scalpel. To Filipinos, discard is not a colloquialism. It is a systemic philosophy. It is the sophisticated intellectual and cultural ability to assess a resource-scarce environment, creatively bypass structural hurdles, be they logistical, political, or financial, and achieve a world-class outcome. When a Filipino engineer, operating without the budget or infrastructure available in London, designs a system that works, that is not improvisation. That is intellectual ingenuity, refined by necessity. Dr. Reyes delivers the punchline with chilling clarity. It is not street smarts, Mr. Finch. It is economic competitive advantage. What you attempt to dismiss as a local colloquialism, we regard as a superior, globally marketable skill set. My competence, and the competence of my nation's economic output, demands that rigor. Our discussion deserves precision, not patronizing simplification. Finch is completely wrong-footed. The smirk has evaporated, replaced by a look of rigid, defensive discomfort. He attempts a weak recovery. Doctor, I was merely trying to translate the concept for our general audience. Dr. Reyes cuts him off, still maintaining the calm, authoritative tone. Then the correct translation is resilience born of rigorous resource management, not an insult that diminishes a nation's ability to compete. Let us proceed with the seriousness the topic deserves. The schooling is complete, delivered with surgical, unshakable dignity. This moment of quiet, dignified defense of Filipino intellect is a source of immense pride. If you're a true, full-blooded Filipino who carries the spirit of Puso in your chest, show your support and subscribe to this channel right now. Join us to celebrate the victory of Filipino intellect over casual Western prejudice. Dr. Reyes's victory was anchored in his linguistic discipline. The perfect, non-regional clarity of his English was his greatest weapon. Because he spoke with such objective authority devoid of the emotional pitch or grammatical slips that Finch might have exploited, his rebuke was impossible to dismiss as an overreaction. It was pure, unadulterated logic. This linguistic precision is a direct legacy of the Thomasite educational system, which, despite its colonial origins, inculcated an almost academic standard of English structure and grammar across the Philippines. This standard, now the gold standard, avoids the cultural baggage and semantic shortcuts of native English dialects. Dr. Reyes used the very language he was taught to masterfully defeat the patronizing assumptions of a native speaker. He didn't just understand the English language, he understood its rules of engagement. We must also zoom in on the historical weight of discard. Its potential etymology traces back to the Spanish verb descartar, meaning to discard or to dismiss. This irony is profound. Discard is the ingenious ability to use the resources or people that others, like Finch, have discarded or dismissed. Dr. Reyes knew that by reducing discard to street smarts, Finch was unknowingly perpetuating a century of colonial-era prejudice against the competence and ingenuity of Asian nations. Dr. Reyes's defense was therefore not just about a word, but about reclaiming the historical narrative of Filipino competence. The clip was immediately isolated, uploaded, and went supernova across every social media platform: YouTube, X formerly Twitter, and TikTok. Within the first hour, the clip was dubbed the BBC Schooling and Dr. Reyes's Masterclass. The reaction was overwhelming and global. Filipinos worldwide experienced a cathartic release. The clip was shared with captions like, "Finally, someone said it on a global stage," and "the quiet confidence of a Filipino professional." It became a powerful, visual affirmation of the often unseen intellectual labor of the Filipino diaspora. But the response was not limited to the Philippines. Academics, journalists, and business professionals from across Europe, Africa, and Latin America praised Dr. Reyes. They recognized the arrogance of the BBC anchor and appreciated the dignity of the expert's response to a common microaggression. The consensus was clear. Dr. Reyes didn't just win the argument, he won the moral high ground and set a new standard for journalistic respect. Finch's casual arrogance was met with the collective, digital fury of a globally connected audience. The pressure on the BBC was immense, forcing the institution to confront its internal biases in real time. The institutional reaction was swift and highly corrective. Faced with a viral clip that was damaging their reputation for objectivity, the BBC's internal compliance and ethics teams were forced to act. They issued a carefully worded public statement, acknowledging that the anchor's choice of vocabulary was inappropriate, potentially misleading, and did not meet the standards of journalistic respect. Behind the scenes, the punishment for Finch was more severe. He was immediately pulled from his regular anchor duties and subjected to mandatory, intensive cultural competency and global dialogue training sessions. The embarrassment was profound. Finch had tried to mock a subtle cultural concept, and the resulting global validation of discard ended his tenure on the prestigious World News desk. The cost of one arrogant, patronizing word proved to be his career progression. More importantly, the clip was immediately integrated into the media training modules of multinational corporations, communication consulting firms, and universities. Dr. Reyes's concise retort became a canonical case study in professional pushback against implicit bias. The message was universally clear: when challenging authority or prejudice, maintain emotional control, use precise language, and focus solely on the intellectual merits of your position. Dr. Reyes had inadvertently supplied the global corporate world with the perfect blueprint for confronting ethnocentric communication. Finch's misjudgment was rooted in a fundamental, yet widespread, Western media assumption that expertise speaks with a native accent. His bias led him to believe that Dr. Reyes, as a non-native speaker, was indebted to Finch for the platform and would welcome the translation. This assumption is the Achilles heel of much Western journalism when covering the Global South. We analyze the 4 elements of Finch's failure. Asterisk. Linguistic arrogance. Believing his native fluency granted him superior semantic understanding of a foreign concept. Asterisk. Cultural dismissal. Reducing discard a concept born of socioeconomic necessity and intellectual ingenuity to a mere hustle. Asterisk. Audience patronization. Assuming the global audience was too unintelligent to handle nuance and required his simple, inaccurate translation. Asterisk. Misreading composure. Mistaking Dr. Reyes's professionalism and restraint for emotional passivity or grateful compliance. Finch attempted to exert control by patronizing, but Dr. Reyes inverted the power dynamic by using pure intellectual authority. He didn't engage in a shouting match, he engaged in a logic debate, a field where his training and preparation proved infinitely superior to Finch's off-the-cuff arrogance. The entire exchange served as a painful, public deconstruction of media colonialism in the modern digital age.
The incident had a powerful, positive effect on the Filipino professional lexicon. The word discard, which had sometimes been used internally in a casual context, was instantly elevated to a term of global technical pride. It was no longer just a word, it was a brand. In the weeks following the interview, trade organizations, international economic forums, and even Western business journals began to use discard unironically, and often with careful attribution, when discussing Filipino and broader Southeast Asian economic agility. Its inclusion signaled a new respect for local knowledge systems. Dr. Reyes had successfully forced the global economic dialogue to adopt a Filipino frame of reference to accurately describe Filipino competence. The victory also reinforced the value of discard in global BPO and IT industries. Companies specializing in Filipino outsourcing proudly cited the clip, telling clients, "You are not just getting labor, you are getting discard the ability to find the most efficient solution under any constraint." The encounter proved that the Filipino professional offers a unique, culturally honed problem-solving ability that transcends basic technical skill.
Dr. Reyes's ability to maintain a perfectly professional demeanor while delivering such a scorching rebuke was rooted in the Filipino concept of puso not just heart in the sense of emotion, but inner strength and unshakable dignity. Had he lost his temper, the BBC could have painted the incident as an emotional outburst against a harmless comment. Instead, Puso provided him with the anchor of composure he needed. It allowed him to channel his indignation into intellectual rigor, converting an insult into a moment of profound, calm teaching. He didn't just defend himself, he defended the integrity of his work and his culture. This powerful restraint transformed the pushback from a personal slight into a collective triumph. It showed the world that Filipino professionals possess a unique, culturally ingrained emotional intelligence that allows them to navigate high-stress, biased situations with unassailable grace. This segment analyzes how this quiet confidence, the strength of Puso, is the key difference maker, proving that the most powerful voice is not the loudest, but the most controlled and the most truthful. The fallout initiated significant, long-term changes in how non-Western experts are treated by major news networks. The Reyes rule effectively became an unwritten guideline. Never patronize, never simplify cultural terms with condescension, and always assume competence. Specifically, broadcast communication firms noted a marked increase in demand for non-native English speakers to serve as anchors and voiceover artists in global news segments. Dr. Reyes's clarity proved that the unaccented Filipino standard was the superior voice for global, non-polarizing authority. The industry realized that the absence of a regional accent equals the perception of objectivity. Furthermore, journalism schools and news agencies across the world began to incorporate mandatory training on the pluricentricity of English, the recognition that English is no longer owned by the US or UK, and that Filipino English, Indian English, etc., carry their own unique, valid, and often superior standards of professional communication. Dr. Reyes's brief interview became the definitive, viral syllabus for this global linguistic evolution. The BBC schooling was more than a viral clip, it was a seminal moment in the history of global media and Filipino cultural influence. It demonstrated that the power dynamic in global communication has fundamentally shifted. The Filipino professional, armed with their linguistic precision, historical resilience discard, and dignified self-respect puso, is now actively setting the terms of engagement on the world stage. Finch's casual attempt to mock a cultural concept resulted in a profound, televised education for millions on the arrogance of ethnocentric journalism. He mistook Dr. Reyes's humility for weakness and his clarity for simplicity. The final victory belongs to precision. Dr. Reyes used the very rules of the English language to dismantle the legacy of linguistic prejudice. The Filipino voice, once viewed through a colonial lens, now commands respect because it speaks the truth unflinchingly, clearly, and with undeniable intellectual authority. The BBC reporter tried to mock a Filipino, but he only cemented the Filipino professional's status as a leader in global rigor and competence. The legacy of Dr. Reyes is that the world must now listen, and listen with respect, to the quiet power of Filipino English. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more.